Hello world, this is Wolfstar Games, it's Anton, and welcome to what I want to call a vlogish, kind of podcasty talk about Robotics Notes Elite. So, I wanted to talk at length quite a bit here of some things that I had either forgotten about or stuff that I had not made connections to before. So I went through some of my past videos, specifically the ones where we go over the Kimijima Reports. So I watched those back to refresh my memory of what those reports said. So I wrote down some talking points that I want to go over. So to start off with report number 1, there were a couple of things that I forgot about with report number 1. A couple of big ones. For one, that the Ulysses project discovered the monopole. I forgot about that. And of course, that came to pass, with a monopole coming down out of the sky, and I, of course, made a joke that it was like a Chicken Little kind of moment, but so kind of forgot about that, as well as Tavistock being known as a brainwashing institute, which, of course, has come more recently into light with them being involved with the Gunvarel anime and having spliced in all these subliminal messages, with Tavistock early on being mentioned as a brainwashing institute. It of course didn't click for me later on down the line that they were responsible for the brainwashing. I mean, I've been working on this Let's Play for over a year now, so there's some things that are a little hazy, little pieces of information like that I didn't remember, obviously. So now that I've gone through these reports, some things are a little clearer, like this whole Tavistock thing here. And then there's this quote straight from report number 1 that I have a high chance of being attacked by an electromagnetic wave weapon. And at the time, I had, to keep it simple, referred to it as an EMP, because that's the only thing I could think of that in the real world that would equate to what an electromagnetic wave weapon would be. And of course now it has clicked for me that the electromagnetic wave weapon would be powered by the monopoles. It's like kind of like a eureka moment here. So it's like, of course, that makes complete sense, right? And then moving on to report number 2, to quote, "The Human Ranch Project has been the sole goal of the Committee of 300 for over 100 years. So I forgot that that was the Committee of 300's sole goal, was the Human Ranch Project, which really hasn't been talked about all that much. I mean, we learned about it in report number 2, and at the time I was like, sounds like a place where they're doing like human experimentation or something like that. And I still feel that way, that that's what part of that project is, which is a huge cause for concern, I'd say. I mean, human experiments, that's a big deal. and that and seeing that that is the Committee of 300's sole goal. I mean, while they may have that goal being their number one, they have to have other goals as well. I mean, they're affiliated with Tavistock and the Illuminati, so I would figure that through these other groups of people that the Committee of 300 would have goals aligned with those groups, different ones. I mean, it would make sense. I mean, they're a huge group, right? So they would want to affiliate themselves with other major groups, so they can do what they feel they need to I guess, control us. I mean, that's what it seems like anyway, that they're trying to control us with all this brainwashing. And of course, with the brainwashing, the 1 billion people who will be used as slaves will not realize they are enslaved due to propaganda. So I started kind of thinking about that with the 1 billion people who would be enslaved. Does that 1 billion include the Committee of 300, Tavistock, and the Illuminati? If so, wouldn't that 1 billion actually be less than 1 billion? I mean, I know I'm kind of I know it may sound like I'm nitpicking here, but I can't help but think in that way. I mean, 1 billion people is kind of a specific number, and to keep that 1 billion, they would have to exclude themselves out from that 1 billion people who would be enslaved. As if the Committee of 300, Tavistock, and the Illuminati rule over them. That, I feel, is kind of like a Big Brother kind of maneuver. Referring back to the story 1984, which I've brought up before in my Let's Play. Doesn't hurt to think of some of these things in some real world stories. I mean, like 1984, Brave New World. I mean, and I've read these, in college. So, and while I enjoyed reading those stories, I can't help but think back on those stories and refer to them with the Committee of 300, because it totally sounds like something out of 1984 and Brave New World, that they're just trying to make this whole world for themselves and rule over it. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about that, because while it is just fiction, some things just kind of get in your head, and sometimes you can't stop thinking about it to the point where you start worrying what could happen in real life. I mean, I feel like some of what's going on in the real world now is kind of heading in the direction of 1984, more so than Brave New World. So it's like I can't help but think about those two stories specifically. And they're great stories. I haven't read them in a long time, but they did leave an impression on me when I first read them. So another thing that I forgot from report number 3 is that Project Adam is being led by Tavistock. That little detail I'm not surprised I forgot. So, c'est la vie, I guess. To quote here, Project Adam will directly interfere with the sun at its period of maximum activity, artificially create a solar corona, and then release it as a solar magnetic storm. With what has been going on currently in the game with the with the solar disturbances, that is what has come to pass, with report number 3 coming true. So it's like Project Adam is like not so much like the trigger, but like the bullet, and the the solar corona and then the solar magnetic storm would I guess be the explosion from the barrel of the gun. The gun, of course, being Tavistock, and also by proxy the Committee of 300. It's like they're the gun. You could say they lit the fuse. I know I kind of mixed metaphors there, but I feel like it still works. Moving on to report number 4, to quote, if Project Adam fails in 2015, large solar disturbances will not arrive in 2019 and 2020. Once past that, the sun will enter a period of stability. Alright, so obviously Project Adam failed in 2015 because we are now just getting in 2019 in game these solar disturbances, and of course that will continue on into 2020. So it's like I do wonder how long lasting this will be into 2020. It's like, I mean, maybe a couple of months, maybe shorter, maybe only like a few weeks. Who's to say? I guess I assume we'll find out eventually. And then with the sun entering a period of stability, that sounds like that the sun will go like dormant or like hibernate. I know that's kind of odd ways to look at the sun, but that's the way I want to see it. So I'm just wondering with the sun, if it's dormant, what will happen further on down the line? Like, will there be another solar disturbance like really far into the future, or will it be much sooner? It's like, how long is this state of stability gonna be? I mean, it could be for like another like 30 50 to 50 years for all I know. I mean, that could be a possibility, but I feel like the game would take things more in the direction of it being a lot sooner. It would be very anticlimactic for a solar disturbance to happen currently in game, and then to find out like further in the future that it's prophesied to happen again. I feel the game wouldn't go in that direction, that the next solar disturbance would be a lot sooner than that. Maybe like in a few months to a year, maybe. I mean, who's to say? I mean, Project Adam failed in 2015, but came back in 2019, so if it's in a 4-year time period that a solar disturbance will happen, then I kind of assume that another one would happen in, what would it be, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. It happened in 2022. So if it happens every 4 years, then I feel like the Earth would be screwed. I mean, every 4 years, a solar disturbance on the magnitude that it happens, especially with right now and with right now where we are in the story of Tokyo being completely paralyzed, blackouts, and people panicking and trying to find out if their loved ones are okay. I mean, Akio's trying to do that with Misane, so I can only assume that with these solar disturbances that we have to put a stop to them in some way. I don't know how, but I feel like something needs to be done in order for this to not happen again. I feel like the Committee of 300 has this grand master plan for the Earth, and they're like playing a masterful game of chess. It's like the Committee of 300, Tavistock, and the Illuminati are like the king, the queen, and what's next down? I think bishop? All the rest of us are like the pawns and rooks. Maybe not even the rooks, more like just pawns. But I kind of feel like that's how the Committee of 300 sees themselves as. And then with report number 5, even though that it was more recent that I went over report number 5, I felt I had to watch over it again just to see if I can make any more connections. And the only thing that I really took away from report number 5 was an epiphany that I had that kind of came up just very briefly, which was a magnetic reconnection, which I feel is a big one. I mean, the report talked about the geomagnetosphere and regular magnetosphere. So, in conjunction with that, we have the solar disturbances. And then down on Earth, we have the monopoles. Apparently more than one fell, according to Akiho. We have the monopoles down on Earth. I couldn't help but think, oh God, the monopoles have electromagnetism. I have this theory with the monopoles and the sun. With the sun having, I believe it was the magnetosphere. I don't think it was the geomagnetosphere. I believe it was magnetosphere. It's like sometimes my memory can be really bad. What if the monopoles are like magnets and are attracting the sun closer and closer to the Earth? That I feel is like huge. If the monopoles are doing that, then when the next solar disturbance happens, that it would completely wipe out the Earth, which, according to the Gunvarel anime, with that image of the sun just enveloping the Earth, and of course the Kimijima report talking about it, that is a huge, huge deal, right? So I feel that if we wind up using the monopoles in Gunvarel, in Gunbuild 2, that is, what does that mean for Gunbuild 2? if the monopoles are attracting the sun closer and closer to the Earth? What would happen in Gunbuild 2? Would the robot be able to survive? Or would it be completely destroyed? Now, this is just a theory, but I can't help but think that this could be a strong possibility. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it could go in that direction, but then again, I could be completely off base. And, that's what theories are for, is just, theorizing what could happen. So, I mean, that's my spiel on all the Kimijima reports. I wanted to make sure I went over those so that we're all on the same page here. But I did want to talk about a couple of other things that were brought up in a recent comment. So, with the Frau, when she learned about her Tweepo getting hacked, when she said that she didn't remember making those posts in her Tweepo account, it didn't occur to me later during editing that she was talking about more so that she didn't recollect that she had made those posts. I mean, sometimes I read too much into things and say just what's on my mind at the time. So that's why I had mentioned that there could have been like a memory wipe for whatever reason. But of course not. It's like I read too much into it. It's just it was just simply that she doesn't remember, that she doesn't recollect that she ever made those posts on Tweepo. I also wanted to talk about the localization with this game. So, Sergei Kazik, if I'm saying your name correctly, thank you for listing off some names that were like mistranslated. I, of course, would have never known some of these. I mean, especially with Gijene. I mean, Sister Centipede is supposed to be her name. I mean, I was kind of flabbergasted at that. I mean, it's an odd name. Why Sister Centipede? And when I kept thinking about that, I'm like, okay, so if her name is supposed to be Sister Centipede in Japanese, what is centipede in Japanese?
Mukade. Mukade.
Mukade. So that's, of course, completely different from Gijene's name, obviously. So I'm like, okay, if it's completely different than Gijene's name, then what's her name sound like in Japanese? And I looked that up, and it's Gijene. So the localization team, I guess, did a more literal translation of Sister Centipede, and it apparently is just Gijene, or Gezi, apparently. Gezi, which is kind of weird to say, like Gezi. That sounds weird, and it's like I'm saying it very nasally. Gezi. It's almost like I'm saying Desi, which is completely different. So with what the localization team with Gijene's name, while I found that interesting, I'm like, so why isn't it just Sister Centipede in English and not Gijene? I guess they just decided to go with it being more literal. I mean, I don't know how the whole localization process works, so I'm not going to try to assume how they do things and how they decide to localize a game. And then another kind of big one was with the phone droid. So I can see where they were going with calling it the phone droid, kind of making it sound like Android. So it's like the phone droid is the Japanese version of Android. At least that's how I want to look at it. But apparently it's actually a Pokécom, which I can hear now, given the timestamp I was given for the robot doctor saying it. So yeah, I hear that now. It's interesting with that one, Pokécom. That one I didn't really look into, but I thought I'd just kind of leave that one alone because that one I'm actually kind of fine with, if I'm being honest. I mean, I feel like the localization team just decided to do a play on words, phone droid, android. So I'll give them that. That's actually kind of clever if that is the case. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I kind of like it. And it did actually get me curious of who did the localization for Robotics Notes Elite as well as Robotics Notes Dash. And I looked it up, and it is... I have it on my phone here. Here we are. Such an odd name. Strangely Compelling Media. Such an odd name for a localization company. But I mean, I guess you do you, Strangely Compelling Media, with your name. and from that, I was like, I couldn't remember who did the localization for, Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero, and I had looked them up before, and with Steins Gate it was Jast USA, and with Steins Gate Zero, the localization team was head by a man named Adam Lensenmayer, and Adam Lensenmayer and his team also apparently did the localization for Chaos Child, which of course I haven't played, but I will at some future point in time. I don't know when, but I will. So, with the science adventure games being not translated, being localized by different companies, it's almost kind of, I don't know, kind of inconsistent with the localization. I mean, I don't really have anything to compare the localization of Robotics Notes Elite to, seeing that this is the first time I'm playing the game. But with Steins Gate, I, of course, played Steins Gate before Steins Gate Zero, and I felt the localization for that was, top notch. I mean, they had the characters' names in the traditional Japanese order, which I respect, and which I try to do myself. Ever since I found out that the Japanese minister wanted to go back to all of Japan, going back to its roots with referring to themselves with family name first, given name last, to Western culture. I mean, for ages, since the Meiji period, they've been referring to themselves with our Western naming order to us. But I had read like last year that they were working towards going back to that traditional Japanese order of their names, and for media outlets, for foreign media outlets to uh, follow that as well. But so far, I haven't really seen any foreign outlets outside of Japan do that uh, with Japanese names. It's like they keep the Western naming order. So I feel like it's just going to take a very long time for that to catch on in the West. I've been trying to do that from now on, ever since I learned that. And I respect that. You have to respect another country's culture. And that's one aspect of Japan that I find very interesting, that they go by their last names, their family names, and not so much their given names. I mean, as an American, I'm like, I I just find it impersonal to go by my last name. And I actually had an 8th grade teacher who would call all her students by their last names, and I did not like that at all. I preferred to be actually called by my first name. So with the naming order in the games, I mean, in Steins Gate, it was the traditional Japanese order, but then with Steins Gate Zero, they had switched it to the Western order, and of course, they did the same with Robotics Notes Elite. And while I respect their decision for doing that, I actually prefer the Japanese order, if I'm being honest. So that's why I've been saying their names in the traditional Japanese order instead of how it's actually on screen. And so that I feel is just a bit of an inconsistency, because there have been a couple of times where the localization team missed a couple. I mean, I can't remember what names they missed, but I remember there was a couple where they missed the of where they missed switching the order to the Western order style. And then, of course, with any visual novel, there will be typos. I mean, I've noted it throughout my Let's Play. I mean, it's a visual novel. There's bound to be typos here and there. And if I'm being honest with the localization of a Japanese game, there's always going to be a little bit of how do I want to put it? Like a matter of opinion on what should be kept true to the game, to the original source material. So I feel that with the localization of any game, whether it be Japanese or another foreign country, there's always going to be some matter of opinion with how something is translated or localized. I mean, like I said, I don't know how localization works. I mean, I'm sure it's a very interesting process and a very lengthy and tedious process. I respect what localization companies do for, foreign games. It's like they put a lot of work into these games to bring them to the West. And, you do kind of have to respect their decisions on the direction they go with, with making it more accessible to them. And with what a localization company does in order to bring a game to the West, they obviously have to change some things it to the game that would be made more understandable to a Western audience. I mean, I've come across like American references in like Danganronpa. I mean, it's like it's kind of weird to have an American reference in a Japanese made game, but it kind of just gotta roll with it. I mean, it makes it more uh it makes it more relatable to the Western audience to have American references in a game. What it all boils down to with the localization team is that they're just trying to do the best job they can with making it more accessible to people in the West here. And I, for one, am glad that there has been an English release at all for Robotics Notes Elite and Robotics Notes Dash. If they hadn't had localized the game, I wouldn't be sitting here playing through it. I mean, I can't read and speak Japanese fluently. So, I mean, I'm learning a little bit of Japanese, but I would not be able to sit down and play through a game in Japanese completely. I mean, there's no way that's happening. Insofar as much that with Robotics Notes Elite and Robotics Notes Dash, I am playing it on my PS4. I'm not playing it on Steam, so I don't have access to the Committee of Zero's patch for the game. And, in so much as me LPing the game, I really am enjoying it. Even with the little bit of inconsistencies with the localization, I really am enjoying it. I'm just glad to be sitting down and actually playing through it with you guys. And I look forward to when I get around to playing Robotics Notes Dash. And if it weren't for the localization team, I wouldn't be sitting here at all playing through these games. So I got to give it to them to bring these two games to the West here. I mean, I know that the game is also available on Steam, but unfortunately, I don't have a Steam account for one. And second, I don't think I'm really set up to do Steam. I mean, my setup is a little weird for one, and second, I don't have a gaming computer, so I don't know if I would be able to do a Steam game, an LP of one, on my Mac laptop. I've only been doing this for a year, a little over a year LPing, so I'm sure further on down the line at some point I'll get a gaming computer. I don't know when, but at some point I will check out Robotics Notes Elite and Dash on Steam, but on my own time. So that's pretty much it for this video. That's everything that I wanted to touch upon. And I know this may seem like a weird kind of video to throw into my Let's Play of Robotics Notes, but I wanted to sit down and talk about all this stuff as its own separate video and not have it be part of an actual episode of my Let's Play. Because I knew it would just take quite a bit of time to talk about. So I thought it would be better just to have it be its own video. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this little podcasty, vlogish type video of talking about robotics notes. And I will see you next time with actually playing the game. So I hope you all enjoyed watching, and thank you all for watching as well. And if you enjoyed the video and want to see more, like, favorite, and claw that subscribe button to become part of the pack. And as always, everyone, I hope you all have a wonderful day or night, wherever you may be.